So next up is Rusty Savanac from the Paxton Garage in Paxton, Mass.
I've heard some of my peers talk about the challenges. A lot of them speak about their successes and how they've accomplished getting over hurdles. I want you to know that my greatest accomplishment was bringing 2/3 of my staff to Vision. But that's two of us. We're two of us are here. I'm an ASC Master Auto and Master Truck Technician. I have L1 and L2 certifications. I've been in the business a little over 40 years. My partner and I bought our shop when I was 19 years old in '74. So I've been going through the same front door to work for more than 40 years. My perspective today is going to be my own perspective and some perspectives that I've gleaned through my association with fellow shop owners, some good shop owners, some not so good shop owners. A lot of interaction with technicians, both face-to-face and through IATN. So some of what I say may be colored with the wrong sort of color, but I'll try and speak from the heart and tell you how I feel. And if anybody wants to challenge me later, as many of you in the audience have done so, I'll be happy to engage. Yeah, wherever. I'm here till Sunday morning. Maybe longer if the snow in Mass doesn't melt. From my perspective, I think that I'm satisfied if I consider myself service ready at my shop for cars that are 3 years old and even 5 years old. You know, we certainly don't see those cars for anything technical, and I'm sure that's pretty pervasive among the rest of the aftermarket business. I think we have an advantage in the independent sector over the factory environment because we don't need to be 100% service ready. We need to have the resources available to accomplish the repairs that come to us, but we can be somewhat selective about what we want to be prepared for. As an example, at my shop, I've made a decision that we're going to be prepared to service the hybrid cars, but limit our scope of training and ability toward routine service and being familiar with what we can and can't do. And that's a big problem for the whole industry, is knowing what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, so you don't start down a road that you can't complete. On the flip side, you know, we've made an effort to concentrate on the diesel market, you know, because there's certainly a lot more diesel pickup trucks on the road than there are hybrids at this point. I'm familiar with those sorts of things. I like those sorts of things, so that's where I focus my efforts. Some shop will say no to a diesel. Rusty will say yes. We specialize in certain brands. Somebody comes to me with a European car, I'm going to be very selective about what I'm going to do to it, what I'm not going to do to it. But we've made a decision to gear ourselves up for the cars and trucks that we see based on the cars and trucks that come through the shop. So we buy our factory scan tools and our annual service subscriptions for the cars and trucks that we see the most. And there are a few vehicles that we're better prepared for than others, but that might be because of the cost of the factory tooling and factory service subscription, because some are more affordable than others. When I see something coming through the door or on the road that I'm going to have to be prepared to work on, that I don't understand, then it's time to take some classes. And I put up some examples, like when the electronic diesels were coming through the door. You know, I had to learn how those work and what we have to do, what we expect, what we have to do to fix them. Variable valve timing, GDI. You know, those are all sorts of things that you at least need to have a good handle on how they are, how they operate, so that when one comes through the door, granted, you know, I may have not taken a variable valve timing class that Honda or Toyota has offered on the factory level, but when I go to the service information and read about how to address the situation that I'm faced with, at least I understand the terminology, the technology, I understand what the component does and what it accomplishes, and you know, I'll get my way through it. And maybe the first one will be a learning experience. Sometimes if we're at my shop, if I don't have the tool I need to complete the job, or if it's something I'm unfamiliar with that I've taken, any one of us can certainly take the use of a mobile technician. I know many of you in the audience know Dave DeCourcy. Dave has an arsenal of factory scan tools. He's a great guy, and he has a world of knowledge. So, we can all use someone like that to complete a task that we've gotten ourselves into. Smart money, I think, exercises something like this 20-minute rule, where if I'm 20 minutes into something and I'm lost, I don't know which branch to follow, I'm not sure what I'm dealing with, then it's time to stop and look in the bag of tricks. That might be visiting an OEM website, using a search function if I didn't start there. In many cases, I start there if it's something I'm really not familiar with. We use the Identifix Direct Hit an awful lot. I think it's an awesome resource as long as it's used properly. Many people use it as just a silver bullet resource to put in a symptom or a diagnostic code and look and see what part gets replaced the most. But they do an excellent job of whittling down a 3-page flow chart into 5 or 6 bullet points that most often will direct you down the path you need to go if you're dealing with that same situation. I use IATN a lot because I've been an IATN member for an awfully long time. I'm familiar with how to search it. Google has got me out of trouble a lot of times when I'm getting nowhere. It's surprising how much information there is there when you go to look, as long as you know what's good and what's bad. Then there's always a network of friends that I've developed over the years who have intimate knowledge of the animal that I'm working on at the time. Where do the techs go? I think there's a very, very tiny percentage of people in the aftermarket that actually use factory resources. And when I say that, I'm talking about factory service information and factory scan tools. I think most of us in the room are affiliated with organizations who are responsible for that problem. And I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but I'm part of it. I'm an officer in NASARA, the New England Service Station Auto Repair Association. And from the standpoint of trade associations and manufacturers and trade publications, we do a lousy job of showing the industry what factory resources are available and how affordable they might be, and what they do that the aftermarket resources don't. I understand the reason behind that is because the aftermarket resources are where all the money is, and that's where technicians and shop owners are spending their money. So where the advertising dollars going to be, the advertising dollars in the magazines are going to be focused on those paths. But you ask 10 average technicians if they would know what the name of the factory scan tool is that you'd use on a Ford, they wouldn't be able to, 9 of them wouldn't be able to tell you. And the one that does may have no idea how affordable it is and what the difference is between that and the aftermarket tools that we use. Most of the world, when I say the world, I mean the aftermarket people that people bring their cars to, do code-based or symptom-based parts replacement first. Pull a code, replace a part, for whatever reason. Maybe if it's an EGR code, we'll start with an EGR valve. Maybe they've been down this road before and know that when they're faced with this particular symptom or this particular code, they usually can fix it by replacing this part. Sometimes it works, many times it doesn't. So we replace the most likely part first, then we replace the next most likely part, then we replace the next most likely part, and then we start looking for help. And unfortunately, the motoring public has a certain amount of acceptance for that. And I think that's sad. I think that's sad. Why is that? Well, obviously the the way that we've pushed the industry into completing a repair fast and putting the emphasis on productivity has hurt us, rather than fixing the car right the first time. Most of us pay our people, I don't, but most of the industry pays our people based on productivity. And that discourages fixing the car right the first time. In my mind, what's a qualified tech? Well, a qualified tech, when I first started, was somebody who could successfully take something apart, mechanical, fix it, machine it, have it machined, put it back together properly, and have it work. And that was someone that had that particular knack or that skill to be able to do those sorts of tasks. And now, a qualified tech has to be someone that has more up here, that has more than the knack for, feeling whether a bolt is cross-threaded or not, knowing how to use a particular tool. The person has to have an analytical mind to be able to understand, first of all, read how something works, or have taken a class in how something works, and then be able to use that knowledge, develop their own procedure for testing how that system works and doesn't work, and be able to come up with the reason why, and then be able to fix it. That person has the analytical mind, perhaps the mathematical skills, some background in physics or science. Those sorts of skills are going to pay more in other lines of work than we can. So the type of person that we need may not even be in the system. They may be trainable, but they may have to work with someone who, what's the word I want? Helps them with, they may not have the full skills. They may be able to put the thing together, but they may need someone else to help them through the diagnostic and the analytical process. There are not a lot of those people out there. And if my son was that type of kid, I steered him away from our trade. I said, this is not what you want to do. You want to go to engineering school, you like mechanical things, you become a mechanical engineer, and he's got a good job. My best two techs over the 40-some odd years have been, they were both kids that went through a post-secondary school, trade school program, and then came to us with that mechanical skill and some basic knowledge, and then we refined them to be to get to the level where they are today. I say they are today. One of them is probably going to be my future son-in-law. He's one of the 2/3 of my staff that is here. And the other saw the light early on, left us and went into police work, and he became the police chief of Paxton. Well, probably the smartest of all of us. When I mentioned working conditions on the slide. That's another thing that turns people off from our trade. Our working conditions in the aftermarket can I say suck?
You can.
All right, I did. We don't typically have, nice, warm, well-lit, warm in the winter, cool in the summer shops with dry floors and no noise. The conditions are not that great. The working conditions, the places we have to crawl into, get under, get over, take a toll on our body. I don't consider myself an old man, but I've got a bunch of junk parts that I can attribute to the trade. Where do we get our techs from? I threw this in just more as a dig than anything else. We can always grab the smart guys that leave the fact that the dealer environment because they're fed up with the flat rate pay that rewards the guy that can do nothing but change parts and penalizes the guy that knows how to fix the car.
He gets them from Nissan.
I know we joke about that, and I've never been a flat rate tech, but I read so much about it on IATN, and I know a lot of the guys that are flat rate techs. I know a lot of the guys that used to be really smart guys that used to be flat rate techs. I think it's an issue, you've heard it before today, I think it's an issue that we really need to address. Most aftermarket shops nowadays are not flooded with work. Well, there's more cars on the road than there were 10 years ago. Why aren't we all flooded with work? It's because the average age of cars is getting better, and we're into the years of cars that the factory has built to be better quality, require less service. You know, I tell people all the time, I say, you know, a car gets to 70,000 miles, it needs a few oil changes, maybe one set of brakes, and it's ready for tires. Well, that's not a big money maker for me. I mean, it is, but it's not a big money maker, you know. And there more of those cars don't help me. You know, I need more of the cars that have got 100,000 plus miles on them that maybe have been neglected. And so there are fewer vehicles, or I call them repair opportunities, cars that are ready for us on the road, and there are more shops every day because there are more independent guys or ex-dealer guys who are opening up a shop on their own. So there's more of us competing for a smaller chunk of work. Well, I talked about there being fewer skilled techs and fewer less that are entering the trade. So how do we fix this? I don't have an answer, but I think some ingredients would be, you know, we need to pay more and have better working conditions to attract the smart kids and pull them away from other industries. How are we going to do that? We need higher door rates. And the only way we're going to get to higher door rates without, you know, scaring away all of our customers, if everybody has higher door rates. And I'm not sure how that can happen. We need to, without, you know, educating a consumer so the consumers understand that you might be better off to pay 170 bananas per hour for a shop that's going to fix your car in an hour and 15 minutes than to pay $75 an hour for a shop that's going to spend all day trying to fix it and charging you $400 for unnecessary parts and give you back a car that's different than when they got it. Again, we laugh, but that's what goes on. I mean, I see it. I have cars that come to me, the people are out of money, they're frustrated, you know, they've spent a lot of money at other shops, and they come to me, and they don't want to pay me my diagnostic fee because they're frustrated and they're out of money. And they go from shop to shop to shop. So I don't know if we can train the public in how to shop for value rather than dollars per hour. They need to know how to differentiate between a good shop and a bad shop. We need to sell value. I think the only way that's ever going to happen is if we have some kind of meaningful licensing, nationwide licensing, or some kind of meaningful industry standards. I think it has to come from within. My trade association has been debating trying to push for licensing in Massachusetts for quite some time. We've got some old cronies on the board. We've got some young blood on the board, and there's always a clash. But I think every time it comes up for discussion, it's a case of, well, I'll agree to it as long as it's not going to be something that's just a pot you throw money in and another sheet of paper to hang on the wall that anybody can get. I'll go on with that. But then there are so many people that fear if it's a meaningful system and they have to prove competence or have something to show for it, they fear that they're going to be taken out of business. So really, there's more people that are against shop licensing than there are people that are for it. That tells me it will never be something that's enacted by law because there's just too much opposition for it. So if we are successful, I think it has to be something that comes from within. Maybe is something to think about is some sort of a network of independent shops that have some sort of a facility recommendation from the automakers. You know, that would be a good place to start because the people that build the cars, certainly we've heard today, know what they think the shop needs to be able to properly repair them. And a recommendation from an OE would mean more to a customer than, forgive me for saying so, Napa Auto Care or AC Delco or AAA rated.